Hey guys, in today's video tutorial, I'm gonna continue from the last time where we left off. So you can download the resource materials from the link provided in the video description and code along with me, or you can simply download the full resource code from the video description as well. So today I'm gonna talk about React props and props.children. So the application from the last time is already running on my computer. So I hope you can remember this from what we were coding last time. And today I'm gonna make a few changes, but it basically should remain the same thing. And some navigation bar added additionally on top of the current content. Okay, so let's get started. React props refers to any kind of properties that you can pass along to your children components. So for example, in my case, inside app, I have 3 children components, which are class component, functional component, and arrow functional component. And for now, if I go, for example, in class component, arrow functional component, and functional component, I don't do anything. I'm just rendering some HTML. Okay. But this time I'm gonna change this. So whatever content we have in here, we can pass it as a property. So we don't need to render any static HTML, but rather we can change the content of the components. So I'm just gonna go ahead and copy from here. I am a class component, and I'm gonna create a property in class component. So in order to create a property, you just need to define a name. You can write anything, almost. There are some keywords that you should avoid, such as key, for example, which is used for React to know the difference between different components of the same and make sure the right components are updated whenever an update is necessary. So for now, I'm just going to call it text, for example, and I'm going to pass as a parameter the text we had previously inside class component. You can name this anything you want. Put it name or whatever else text that makes sense to you. I'm just gonna leave it text for now. So once I go inside class component now, in order to access this property, I need to call the props object of this class. Okay? So by default, props are passed to the class component, whether you pass anything or not. So in order to access these props, I need to type this.props, and here I have access to all the properties. Now in order to access the text property that I just passed, I just need to put the name text. And I'm gonna save. I'm gonna save here as well. And as you can see, there's no difference in here, only now that I am using the text property. So if I change the name of this, for example, I'll call it name, and then I'll change it to name here. There will not be any error, as you can see. But if I misspell this, for example, I put names, then I don't have anything here. And if I'm looking in the console, I might be able to see some errors, because that is a common behavior. However, in this case, even though names is not defined, React doesn't warn you about this error, so you need to be careful. You can also add a conditional so that you check whether props exist or not. So for example, you can put an or, so that in case the property that I just passed has no value, some default value will be rendered. Default value. So now, if I go in here, I can see the default value. And it means that my props names has no value. But if I'm gonna change it back to name, I will see I am a class component text value. Okay. You don't necessarily need to write this all the time. For example, if you had I don't know, 10 different properties, maybe you will be quite cumbersome to write this all the time, this the props does something. So what you can do, you can use ES6 notation, so you can destructure a object. So for example, we'll have name property equal this.props. Okay. So in here, I don't need to type this.props.name. I can simply leave it name. And as you can see, it's still the same thing. I could add a second property. For example, I could put, let's say, text. And I'll say I am text. Okay. And I'm gonna go ahead and add a second line here. So I'll put text in here. Yeah. And then I will get the text value as well. And if I'm saving, you can see I have also I am text. Now I know you might don't like it because there's no space, but you can add a space as well. So you can do something like this. Okay. So basically anything inside curly braces is executed as code. So you can have an expression in here. For example, I'll put 2 plus 3. And if I save this, I'm going back to the browser. I can see the evaluation of 2 plus 3 is equal 5. Okay. So I hope you understood this bit from here. And I'm gonna do the same step inside the other kind of components we had, the functional component and the arrow functional component. So you'll see the similarities yourself. I'm just gonna keep this to text. Okay, and I'm just gonna take this bit from here and I'm gonna add it inside here. Yeah. So I'll have something like this. And in here, I don't have a render function, but what I can use variables inside the function body. Okay, so I'll put const text equal props. Now, it's very important not to forget to pass this as a parameter to the function. So now I'm gonna copy this bit from here and add it as well in app.js. So I'll call it text. I'll remove the other parts that we had and do the same for the arrow functional component. Okay, and I'm gonna do the same for a functional component. So I'm gonna delete this part, and from here I'm gonna save here, I'm gonna save here, I'm gonna copy this inside the functional component. Okay, and I'm gonna do something similar to what I've done before. So will be props. Okay, props here as well. And as you can see, it's the same content that we had before, but now we have variables that we're using to render the content of these elements. Also, if you're not familiar with this kind of syntax, you can keep it the way we had it before. So you can have props.text, but it's important so you can see that inside functional and arrow functional component, you don't need to put this dot, okay? So you can see there's no broken element or anything like that. It's exactly like what we had previously. Okay. The advantage of doing this is that you can basically change any content that this element have from the top of your application. So you don't need to go and dig deep inside to the other bits where you start editing directly the content of the components. So what I'm gonna do next is I'm gonna show you what props.children is. So imagine that you had a component and you wanted it to be used across the application. Something like a navigation bar, which should be present everywhere. So what you could do instead of having to use that on every page, imagine that you had multiple pages and all the pages had to use that element. So instead of having to copy all the code from that element inside every page, you can use it as a wrapper. So you'll wrap the children components for that element. So I'm gonna create a new component and I'm gonna call it navbar. Okay, navbar. So the navbar will always go on top of the page, or there are websites that use a sort of sidebar or a bottom navigation bar, but most of the website use a top navbar. Okay. I'm just gonna give an example. So if we go to GitHub, yeah, you'll see this is your navbar, the part that stays always on top. Okay, so the top of the page is the navbar. So we're gonna add something similar here. I'm gonna make it as a class component. So I'm gonna go ahead and import React from React, and I'll create the class component. I'll do export default class navbar extends react.component, and in here we're gonna have the render, and we're gonna return a div element which is gonna have a different styling so that we can see the difference. So I'll make it background color. Make it blue, and the text color will be white. And in here we're gonna put this props.children. This is a specific property that is used with React. So you don't need to have something called like what we did here, something like children, and you put the component here. You don't need to do this. React is gonna handle this by default. Okay. So I'm just gonna come back here. I will actually not have everything blue, but rather have a top element blue. Okay. So we'll put something like this, and I will add a bottom margin. Okay, and I'm gonna put some content so that you can see the navigation component. I am the navigation bar component. Okay, and here we're gonna get rid of the margins. So now what we're gonna do, we're gonna import the navbar. Okay, and I'm gonna do it this way. So I'll have navbar opening tag, and then I'll have the closing tag after the arrow functional component. Okay, so now if I do Ctrl S, you'll see the navigation bar component and the rest of the components. Okay, so what this means is that navbar itself is not just the top part, but it's actually the entire page that we have here. And inside this page, we have the components that we had created previously. Okay. Also, an additional thing that you can do, for example, if you wanted to pass some component to another component, you can do it as a parameter as well. You can do it as a property. So, for example, let's say we wanted to pass class component to a different element. Okay, so I'm gonna create a different element outside the navbar. Okay, so you'll be able to see also how much space does the navbar take. Normally, it should try to fill the page if it's the only element. Otherwise, it will limit itself until the next element that's coming. So I'll have something that will have the background color back. And inside it will have the text color white. Okay, and I'm gonna make this as a separate component. So I'm gonna create another class component, which will be called receiver, component receiver. Okay, so new file, component receiver. Okay, so I'm gonna import React as well. I forgot the keyword class. Okay, and now we're gonna have the render method, and in here we're gonna do a return. Okay, and I'm gonna paste the HTML I just created. So I'm gonna try to access the component that I'm gonna pass. Okay, so first I'll say const component equal this.props. Okay, you can have anything named here, but if you're passing a component, I suggest use capital letters. At least first letter should be uppercase letter, because React should know that this is a component, is not an XML or HTML tag. Okay, now I'm gonna have a component and I'm gonna pass it over here. So I'll go back to app.js and import the component that we just created, which is component receiver. So I'm just gonna add it after navbar, the component receiver, and I'm gonna create the component property. And inside here, I'm simply gonna pass a class component, the one that we already have. Okay. So inside the component receiver, you should be able to see class component, which if you're looking at the code, it has the background color red and the text color white. Okay. So I'm gonna save this. I'm gonna save this as well. And if we're going on the page, you can see here is our class component. Remember, we haven't passed any property, so it's gonna keep the default value. If you really want to see that I'm passing it to the component receiver, I'm just gonna increase the height of this element, or I'm just gonna add some padding. Okay, so padding should allow you to see what we have there. So I'm just gonna put 2 rem, and as you can see, component receiver, if you remember, has the background color black. Okay, and if you're looking again, class component has background color red. And we're looking in app.js what we've done here. We passed the class component as a property to component receiver, and we have our class component inside the component receiver. Okay, you can name this anything. You don't need to say component. You can call it even class component. Okay, and you can come here and do class component. Okay, so you can see it's the same thing. Yep. I can even change the component I'm passing. I can pass a functional component. So I'm passing functional component. And as you can see, it's the green one. If you remember, the functional component has a green background. Okay. Also, if this component had any properties that you wanted to pass, you can pass them as another parameter. So I'll call them component properties, props. Okay. So in here, I can pass any kind of property I want as objects. Okay, so it had the text property. Okay, and I'm gonna put functional component. I am a functional component. Okay, so now I need to go inside my component receiver class and put this that we received. So I'll have component props, if I'm not wrong. Component props, I'm just gonna copy paste so I can avoid any kind of spelling mistakes. And in here, I can do something like this. So this means all the properties that I'll be passing from here will go inside there. So I'm gonna click Ctrl S, Ctrl S, and as you can see, the text came in. Yeah. Let's say you wanted the second property to pass. No change needs to be done here. The only thing I need to make here, so I'm gonna have another one. Name. I have this is my name. Gonna go on a new line. So if I want now to have this name property shown in class component, I obviously need to edit the class component I'm using. Okay, and in my case, class component is not the actual class component that I created inside components folder, but is the functional component, because this one is the one that I'm passing. I need to go to functional component, and in here I can also render the name property. So I'll have I'll add name here as well, and I will do here name or no name for now. And I will actually put this on a new line. So I will have something like after this, put oops, it's the other way around. A new line. It's not going on a new line for some reason. Anyway, you can basically see the difference. If I'm going back to objects, I have here the functional component where I'm not passing any name property. So for this one, it's showing no name for now. But if you check the one that I'm passing, the name in here is for component receiver, you can see that it's showing this is my name, which is exactly the same value that I got here. Okay. I hope you find this tutorial useful, and thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.